This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Please seek a medical professional or healthcare provider if you're seeking any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Thanks, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. I don't know. I keep changing it.
I know. I was like, Julie.
You're on point. I'm the one that I don't know what I was doing. I was fixing my shirt, everything. It's a day.
Yes.
We were just talking about that anyway.
I know.
But here we are. And this is a thread that actually went viral on Threads. It was a topic on Threads. That's what I meant to say. It was a topic on Threads. And
I had actually never heard of this.
I think I had heard about it because of a movie.
Okay.
I had seen something about it in a movie, but that's it. Like, I didn't even think it was like a real
Yeah.
thing.
So we're talking about third man syndrome, and I had never heard about this before.
Super interesting.
Yeah. Once I started kind of reading into it, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I see where this is kind of going, but I didn't know what would spark so much interest.
Threads really liked it. So we're like, okay, let's give it a shot.
All right, let's do it. Yes. All
Go
right.
ahead.
So what is it?
Yeah.
Third man syndrome, also called third man factor, is a pretty cool phenomenon experienced by individuals in really extreme situations. So think about explorers, mountaineers, survivors of disasters. These are usually the people that can experience this type of phenomenon. It involves the perception or sensation of an unseen presence, but that's going to provide you comfort, support, guidance during times of distress or life-threatening circumstances.
Right.
I guess my third man person hates me because it never comes to me in times of distress. I'm just kidding. Thankfully, I've never been in those situations.
I was gonna say, like, well, you've been snowboarding and stuff, so
Yeah, but I don't see it. If I see a third person, I'm gonna die.
well, that's it. Like, that's kind of like when these people see it when they're like near death or very, 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 very dangerous situations.
It reminds me of the Sandra Bullock movie
Which
when
one?
she's lost in space.
Oh yeah, Gravity. I
Yeah,
think
Gravity. Yeah. So
Oh, yeah,
it reminds
that-
me of that she's like talking to George Clooney
That's
the entire
exactly
time or
it.
something.
That's exactly it. Or like Castaway.
Or Passed Away. Yes, Wilson.
So you see,
Wilson.
it's those are perfect examples of exactly
Yeah,
this. It's like
exactly.
you're pretty close to death. Everything looks real dire,
Yeah.
you know. So then I guess we're gonna talk into it. Like, let's
Exactly.
keep going.
All right. So this kind of syndrome is not fully understood, but it's thought to be a coping mechanism triggered by the brain during high stress situations.
Right.
But maybe related to the brain's response to maybe isolation, stress, or need for social interaction and support. While the experience is subjective, many who have encountered it feel like it's really real and often provides strength and motivation that's needed to kind of overcome the situation. This phenomenon is distinct from hallucinations or delusions, as it typically occurs in otherwise mentally healthy individuals and often described as comforting and a positive experience.
Right.
So yeah, and there's been like reported cases of people in isolation
we're gonna get into it.
and all of that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk also at the end of this episode, like some actual accounts of people that have experienced this. Why did they like what dire situation were they in, and how did they even experience it? Because everybody has a different. It's not always like this person that they see. Sometimes it's like a whole situation.
Yeah.
That presents itself as a third man syndrome type of thing. So that'll be at the end once we keep defining this. So where did the syndrome come from? Like, how was it named? All that stuff. So this phenomenon is named after an experience described by Sir Ernest Shackleton, an Antarctic explorer. Jesus. Yeah.
Dire
Precarious.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Who recounted feeling an additional presence with him and his team during a harrowing journey. I mean, that's just, yeah. So Shackleton's expedition, known as the Endurance Expedition, tell me about endurance. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to need every sort of endurance to go through the
to go-
Antarctic.
yeah, exactly. I think you need an endurance just to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
That you have to cross that crazy.
In 1914.
Yeah. How did he get there?
Hence this.
Hence
Anyway.
this, yeah. We understand, Sir Shackleton. We
Exactly.
understand.
So in 1914, this is when it began, and it was with the goal of making the first land crossing of Antarctica. However, the experience faced severe challenges, as high probability that it was going to.
Yeah.
And then when their ship, the Endurance, became trapped and eventually crushed by pack ice. So like it's
Packed
like,
ice, right?
so it's like think of the Antarctic. So
Yeah,
it's big
like just-
sheets of
I'm guessing it's like glaciers.
Exactly. And then this left the crew stranded in the ice floes of the Weddell Sea. So it's like one of the seas of Antarctica there.
Is the North Sea like?
No, you're thinking of that pass.
Yes.
Between like
But that's to
Argentina
the
at the bottom.
Antarctica, right?
To Antarctica. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a name for it. I don't know if it's the Darwin Pass. There's a pass.
Yes, there is. There is a path,
It's,
and
it's
keep on
all
forgetting.
over TikTok.
It's all over my TikTok page, and I would die if I had to.
I
cross
remember
that.
when you said, "Oh, I would love to see Antarctica or something like
Yeah,
that."
and then
I'm
you're like, you have to cross the North Sea, and then I was like, that's actually been very much on my TikTok for you page.
Yeah.
And I
don't
do
know
not want
But
that.
I don't think it's a North Sea because I think the North Sea is
No, but
in
there's
the
definitely
Arctic.
a
But
path.
it's
There's definitely a path, and some people like kind of cruise around it, but they don't like actually go.
and there's
there.
actual like passenger cruise ships that are like smaller and more designed for that. And still, these
Yeah, no.
like regular commercial cruise ships, you see the stuff and it's like the waves are
Not
going.
for me. Not
It's-
for me.
It's so intense.
No, I can't. I
Anyway.
get nervous.
So yeah, they managed to get through that and whatever, and they made it to Antarctica, but then tragedy. So for nearly 2 years, okay, Shackleton and his crew endured extreme conditions, including harsh weather, limited food supplies, and complete isolation. You're talking about this happening in 1914 in Antarctica.
How did they survive?
So, despite these challenges, Shackleton's leadership and determination played a crucial role in ensuring the survival of all 27 men. This guy's like the ultimate badass.
I know. I want to meet him.
I know. Well, I mean, he's probably. But anyway,
No, he's most likely.
more than likely.
If you see him, run.
You're experiencing third man syndrome at that
If
point.
you see him, run. He is not my third man.
So during the most critical phase of their journey, Shackleton and the small group set out on an 800-mile open boat journey to seek help from a whaling station in South Georgia Island. This journey was fraught and dangerous and required navigating treacherous seas and crossing mountainous terrain. It was during their incredibly crazy journey that Shackleton reported experiencing the sensation of an unseen presence guiding and supporting him. He described this feeling as though there was an extra member in their group providing encouragement and direction. This experience of a comforting presence during extreme adversity became known as the third man syndrome, a term later popularized by T.S. Eliot in his poem The Wasteland, which references Shackleton's account. And Shackleton and his two companions frequently felt as though a fourth person was accompanying them. This sensation inspired T.S. Eliot to write this stanza in his poem, which is where this came from. And then it kind of describes it pretty well. So, who is this third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together. But when I look ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you, gliding wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded. I don't know whether man or a woman, but who is that on the other side of you? So it was like a hooded figure that they were seeing.
Yeah, again, that's not what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, kind of sounds like death, like, following.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
that's my interpretation.
The Grim Reaper. That's what I literally thought.
Yeah. So Shackleton's story is not only a testament to human endurance and leadership, but also provides insight into the psychological mechanisms that may arise under extreme stress.
I mean, I don't need any more motivation than that. If I see the Reaper, that is going to motivate me to survive.
And that's probably what
I'm gonna
happened.
escape that man.
That's probably what happened. He's like, it's coming. It's getting
it's
closer.
coming, so
let's go.
We gotta survive.
Those 800 miles, we're doing them. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the history where it came from. So how can we explain this in a medical sense?
Yeah, exactly. Let's make some medical sense into this. Obviously, the first one that we're going to talk about is going to be a stress response. When a person is in a dangerous situation or a highly stressful situation, their body activates like the fight or flight response, right? This is going to be like the one that gives you like that adrenaline and all of that. This is a survival mechanism that prepares the body to either confront or run, right? So it involves a release.
Run.
Yeah, in my case, run. Run to the mountains, wherever it is. I don't know if I would run into the sea, but run to the mountains. I can't. I'm a land kind of gal. All right. I actually love the water.
Yeah, I know.
Pero yo me tengo el respeto. You know?
Yeah. But you're like, you're there. I'm here. We like each other. But
Exactly. But that's it. You know, I'll bathe in the beach.
I want
you
my
know?
toes.
I'll wet my toes, but that's it. I wanna touch land, right?
I'm at all times near land.
Exactly. So, anyways, like I kind of said, these stress hormones are going to be adrenaline, cortisol, which is going to increase the heart rate, blood pressure,
Yeah.
your energy supplies. That is what's going to give you that rush, right?
Yeah.
Then you have something like altered perception, right? When you're under extreme situation and under extreme stress, the brain can alter its perception of reality. This leads to a sensation of an unseen presence as the brain tries to cope with the overwhelming situation. The presence is often perceived as comforting and guiding, helping the individual feel supported.
I guess it's like a mirage in a sense, because you know how you want, if you're like in a desert and you're looking for water and then you see a mirage and it kind of gives you hope because you're getting closer to water or something. So maybe it's something similar to that. And
Yeah.
mechanism, you know?
Yeah, I feel like also just you have so much like you have a rush of these like neurotransmitters and anxiousness and all of that. And it's like, you know, the only way that I can explain
No, a bit.
So the only way that I can explain this is a normal, regular person, day to day. When you are anxious, like you and I today, right? That we're like, we gotta do. It's like the smallest thing
Yeah.
can be warped into something massive, right?
Totally.
Compared to, I don't know, someone that just spent the day at the beach. You tell them this and they're like, don't worry, it's okay.
That's
You know?
Yeah.
So imagine this, right? People, Mr. Shackleton,
Yes.
that spent
Sir-
2 years, Sir Shackleton.
Sir Shackleton.
Yes. So 2 years in this situation, I can only imagine how his perception of things were completely warped by his brain.
That adrenal gland must have been the size of a raisin when he was hit by this. Obliterated.
Just shriveled. Poor man. Yeah, just come on.
You're telling me like he lived through that of 2 years and he managed to save all 28.
Gone.
Like,
I can't. So, all right. So another medical explanation for this can be a coping mechanism, right? The sensation of a guiding presence could be a coping mechanism that the brain uses to help individuals manage the stress and maintain focus. By creating the illusion of a companionship, the brain might be trying to reduce feelings of isolation and increase the person's resilience. Like Castaway.
Yeah.
Like how people
in
say
Gravity.
in prison,
Or,
in prison when they're in
Yes.
isolation, they kind of
Right.
start talking to no one.
I know,
right?
that's so interesting, but that's exactly it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's also, which is probably, I guess we've talked about this before and it's like a common theme, but I guess this is like, we finally give it a name, you know?
Yeah.
But also there's been reports of people that are abducted, like
Oh, right.
people in abduction.
Yes.
And they're maintained in like dark areas and things like that.
Yes.
They make real, like they actually think that they are abducted with other people.
Right.
And they truly think that there's another person in there with them.
Right. And we're not talking about alien abduction. Okay. We're
No,
talking about
we're
like
talking about an actual like
yeah.
human abduction
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
right.
Yeah. Even though that this is
You're
a
right.
third person, they actually truly describe and they give them names and like even sensations of touch and everything.
Yes. And then when they come out of that situation, if they do, then they realize, and it all comes down like, holy
Yes.
cow, that person never
Was
existed.
not
Yeah.
real, which is insane.
It's
Imagine
insane. It's insane.
you think that a person is real and you're concerned for that person and you develop this relationship
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
that person
Absolutely.
and they're not real.
Incredible.
Then you can have neurochemical changes, which is kind of like what we were kind of like segueing into, is that you have this rush of neurotransmitters. So the intense stress can lead to changes in brain chemistry affecting your neurotransmitters that influence mood and perception. These changes might contribute to the experience of third man syndrome as the brain seeks to protect the individual from the psychological impact of this crazy stress that someone's feeling.
Absolutely. So then there are, of course, this all sounds like really, really like abstract and intense, right? So with that, there's going to be some theories, right? So then let's talk about at least the very common theories about this to explain what this really is. One, it's stress-induced hallucinations by everything that she had mentioned, right? So then all those things that she had mentioned would probably, maybe, depending on the person and the situation, may induce some hallucinations. One of the most widely accepted theories is that third man syndrome is a form of hallucination triggered by extreme stress or isolation. When the brain is under significant pressure, it may create a comforting presence to help the individual cope. This presence can manifest based on personal beliefs or cultural background, such as an angel or a spiritual figure, which is a lot of the accounts that you may see out there as well.
Yeah.
So second one is coping mechanism, as we've mentioned. So some psychologists suggest that third man syndrome acts as a psychological coping mechanism. So in life-threatening situations, the brain may generate an imaginary friend, just as she had mentioned in that example of abductions, or support a figure to provide emotional support and encouragement, helping the person to persevere and survive. And then third, heightened awareness. Another theory proposes that the syndrome results from the brain's natural response to danger. In critical situations, the brain releases chemicals that enhance sensory perception and awareness, potentially leading to sensation of a presence, because it's like you're hyper aware, you know? So
Yeah.
maybe like,
Cue Evie in the Everglades at nighttime.
oh my God.
With no lights, and then literally hearing every sound out there, thinking that there was an alligator ready to attack me at all corners and inches.
Check out our previous episodes on
If
that
you've been
story.
following us, you know my story of being in the Everglades
Oh my
at
God.
nighttime.
She practically flew out of there.
No, if I had wings, I would have flown.
Exactly.
She think I've ever run.
She became like Jesus in that moment and
I did.
walked over that swamp.
Yeah, exactly. It's just following that one little light of that parking lot.
That person was a freaking. You escaped a serial killer that day.
No, for sure I did.
So four, spiritual and paranormal explanation, which is what's very interesting for a lot of people that look into this. Some individuals interpret the phenomenon as a spiritual or paranormal experience akin to the presence of guardian angels or supernatural beings. While this explanation lacks scientific evidence, it resonates with those who perceive the presence as a protective or divine.
I'm not sure how divine that person is gonna be if he's in a brown hood.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that sounded very ominous.
not sure if angels wear brown. I'm unsure of that statement.
It's not in their color palette, for
not
uniforms.
sure if that's part of the neutrals. I'm just kidding. Brown is the neutral, but not heavenly neutrals.
Yeah, no, not with the heavenly, divine.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, so, and then this one that I had never heard of, bicameral mentality. So it's a less common theory that relates to the concept of bicameral mentality, where the mind is thought to operate in two separate chambers. In extreme conditions, these chambers might communicate in a way that creates the illusion of an external presence. So pretty cool. Despite the varied theories, the third man syndrome remains a mysterious and intriguing subject, highlighting the complex ways in which the human mind responds to adversity. Whether viewed as a psychological phenomenon or a spiritual encounter, it underscores the resilience and adaptability of the human spirits in times of crisis. Because, yeah, like, it's crazy how the mind can just, like, help you, like, get through these insane moments, you know?
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and mention some accounts that sounded pretty interesting, just to give you more of an idea of how different it could be per account, per situation too.
All right. So first one is going to be Joe Simpson's climbing accident. In 1985, mountaineer Joe Simpson fell into a crevice of one of the mountains in the Andes.
Yeah.
Okay. He was actually severely injured and alone, and he felt the presence of a person who guided him to safety. Simpson detailed this experience in his book that's called Touching the Void.
And it kind of reminds me of that movie. What was it? 100 and something. I don't know how many hours, whatever. The one with James Franco that he gets stuck.
Oh, yes. That he was the hiker.
And then he has to, like, end up cutting his like arm from the elbow. It's like
Crazy. Crazy things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You also have Harrison Oaken's survival. So in 2013, Harrison Oaken survived 3 days in an air pocket after his ship capsized off the coast of Nigeria. During this ordeal, he reported feeling the presence of another person who helped him stay calm and survive until he was rescued.
An air pocket.
Yeah, I don't.
Again, air pocket.
I'm having anxiety just thinking about what these people went through, and I'm so happy. I've never, knock on wood, but never had to do that. But even like 9/11 attack survivors. So during September 11 attack, survivors reported feeling guiding presences. So, for instance, a group of firefighters trapped in the North Tower felt led to safety by an unseen figure, which they described as an angel. And that was a huge report. I do remember them
It
reporting
gives me
that.
goosebumps. Like,
Yes, it also reminds me of, I cannot remember which earthquake it was, but there was an earthquake that was reported. I mean, there's a lot of earthquakes out there, but I specifically remember that there was an earthquake not that long ago, like maybe a little over a year ago, that was reported, and there was a child that was stuck under the rubble.
Oh, jeez.
And when they finally rescued the child, and I'm talking about the kid was there for like 3 days.
Right.
So when they finally rescued the child said that was looking, it's like, no, there was a lady that was talking to me.
Wow, yeah.
And there was a lady like keeping me calm. And he like even had descriptions of the lady.
Yeah, like lady was there.
The lady was there and they were talking to me and they told me that the firefighters were like gonna come. And like he even went as far, I can't remember if it was a little boy or a little girl, but the child even went as far as to say that that person fed him water.
Wow.
Yeah. So which is just crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
I know it. That's why it's like, it's incredible to hear these stories, right?
Yeah.
So then we're going to mention like a couple other ones too. And then these you could find, I mean, there's a million of them out there, right? And then, but there's a really good article on BuzzFeed, which I will link in the show notes of wherever you're watching or listening to this, that you could go ahead and read further on. But these are extracted straight from that BuzzFeed article. And then they collected like, I think 20 something of them. And I just picked a few of them, right? So let's talk about them. First one that I just had to include was, this is by Anonymous, and this is her account, right? So she says, I am disabled and I survived the attacks on the Twin Towers. I was buried under the debris for about 15 hours, but I was never alone. I kept hearing from a voice that said his name was Michael. When I was at my weakest, he would just keep me talking to him. When I was rescued, I found out that there was never a man named Michael anywhere in the area. So kind of like that story of the kid.
Story of the kid. Yeah.
I still wonder who was the voice that saved me from becoming another death on that terrible day.
So I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, no, I'm just full of goosebumps this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's another one. I was driving back from college my freshman year and got totally lost in a heavily wooded area. This was before GPS and cell phones were a thing. So I was just stuck on these roads alone. I couldn't find my way to the highway and I was looking and as the sun set, a huge storm broke out and it started pouring rain. The rain was so heavy I could barely see the road. Suddenly a house with all of the lights had appeared. It was the only house I had seen for miles. Against my better judgment, I parked the car and went running to the door. The house had a fence but no gate to open, so I hopped the fence and started banging on the door asking for help. A woman opened the door and invited me inside. The house was empty except for a big beanbag chair in the kitchen. She said that she had just moved in and her husband had left to get something. So it was just us. I was soaking wet, so she offered me a change of clothes and poured me a cup of tea. She let me use her phone to call my parents, but they didn't answer. So I left her number on the machine so they could call her back and thank her. She said I was really close to the highway, but understood I had already had a rough night, so she offered to drive and guide me to the highway so that I wouldn't get lost again. Turns out, if I had just kept driving another minute up the road, I would have hit the highway. My mom called the number I gave the next day, but we got an error saying that the number didn't exist. Despite driving past that road many times later in my college career, I never saw that house ever again. That's kind of weird.
Is that not bonkers?
Yeah,
that's a
weird.
whole ass situation. That's
Yeah.
not even like a third person, just a person.
But that's like weird because how did you leave a message?
That's it. Like, must have imagined it. I don't know.
No, but how did they leave the message so that the mom had the number to call back? So there had to have been some phone.
But they tried calling back the number and it didn't. It was
Never existed.
Yeah, it never existed.
So weird.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, next one. That was by Joanna from Georgia in the US. And so the next one. Years ago, I was heading back by train from my parents' house to university. It was late and I had my head resting on the window with my eyes closed. Suddenly, a voice started telling me to move. It got louder and more urgent. But when I opened my eyes, there was no one yelling at me on the train. The other few passengers were all minding their own business. The The voice in my head got louder and louder, more and more urgent. I felt silly moving, but I finally couldn't ignore the voice any longer. So I scooted the seat over and sat upright. Just then, a bullet came through the train window, right where my head had been. I'd been done if I'd stayed where I was. You see? They're all different. Like, she didn't see somebody. It was just something.
But I'm like thinking, like, you're not in a dire situation. You're on
Right?
the train.
I know. And that's what she was saying. It was like nothing was happening. Everybody was minding their own business. She was like kind of like almost napping. Like she was just like laying her head on the window.
That's weird.
Right? Is it like your brain that senses something, like peripherally sees something happening or whatever? And
I don't know.
yeah. So that was by Anonymous.
And there, like, I can't really say that there's like a medical explanation for that, you know, because you're not stressed. There's not a stress response. There's like nothing to kind of explain like why you would perceive someone.
That's the thing. Unless the only scientifical thing, I guess more concrete, is that you subconsciously were like your peripherals saw something, sensed
Maybe,
something,
yeah.
and then that made you want to do that. I don't know. I'm trying to put some logic into something that doesn't have much
Yeah.
logic, you know?
Yeah.
So
I mean, again, like this kind of thing, it's not really well understood. And
Exactly.
we just have theories on why it would happen.
Exactly.
It's just like it happens to a lot of people, kind of like how Julie and I have talked about before on near-death experiences.
yes.
So there's no real logical explanations.
Right.
But since we've done that episode, there's been more medical articles like
Coming out.
talking about how we can get like some picture into the near-death experiences. There's no explanation right now,
Right.
but these are just things that happen.
Exactly. Right now, maybe with technology, we may learn something else.
Yeah. And we like actually just covered on our previous recap episode
Yeah.
on how people in vegetative states, how it was
Exactly.
thought to that they didn't,
Yeah.
that they weren't there. And now actually maybe some studies are suggesting against that.
That's why you can't say these things are just like,
I mean, yeah, you should never say, I always say in medicine, it's never say never.
Yep. You never know.
You never know.
You really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
You know? All right. That's
All right. So this is another one. So it was the summer of 1986. Oh, I feel like that's like the start of a song. Summer.
It's like a Taylor Swift song.
1986. Yeah, exactly, like T Swift.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was the summer of 1986, and I was about 5 when this happened. My father was a Marine, and the Marines brought their families together for a day of hot dogs, baseball, and fun.
So they,
So
like-
the park we were at had paved a walking trail, and that was basically just a really big circle around the park. So little 5-year-old me had my hot dog and went for a walk on the trail. At the furthest point of the trail, else where everyone else was, I began to choke. I took a bite of the hot dog that was too big and I was having difficulty chewing it, which led me to accidentally swallowing before it was ready to be swallowed. I knew I was done for. I stood there looking around, hot dog in the left hand, right hand where I felt it got stuck right below my voice box. I was trying my hardest to push a vomit and vomit it out. I began to think I'm gonna die. That's that very second. I felt the urge to look up. To my left, not 3 feet away, was a tiny little old lady. She was straight up a stereotypical image of a sweet little old lady sitting on a bench, smiling at me. I quickly mentioned to her that I was choking, just casually, like, hey lady, I'm choking.
Yeah.
In her soft, sweet smile, the old lady voice said, oh, I know. You need to just relax. Everything is gonna be fine. Seeing her happy calmness made her instruction to just relax seemed like a good idea, so I did. The moment I began to relax was the moment I felt a hot dog moving back up my throat and back into my mouth, then out on the ground at my feet. I was in shock seeing a literal half of a hot dog on the ground, and I couldn't believe I took that big of a bite. I'm not sure how long I was staring at the hot dog, but I couldn't have been more than a second or two. When I looked up, there was no bench, there was no old lady. Oh my God, I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Okay, I just lost it crying standing there until one of the other Marines noticed me and came on to check on me. When he asked what was wrong, I mumbled out through tears what had happened. He stood up quick and...
Whatever.
Okay,
Just
he
stood up
stood up
quick.
quick and looking around for the old lady, then walked me back to the rest of my families, and that was Anonymous. So weird.
Right? I
I
don't
wonder if
think
these stories are true.
Well, these are the people's accounts
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, these are people's accounts that we got.
from that BuzzFeed article.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
It's just, yeah. I would never eat a hot dog again, that's for sure.
yeah.
I'm done with hot dogs at that point. Anyway, next one. I was driving on a somewhat rural road on a very windy winter's day. The snow was being whipped across the road, and a sudden gust of wind hit the back end of my car. This caused me to fishtail and I lost control. I shot across oncoming traffic off an embankment and rolled the car into a field. As I was airborne, I felt someone sitting next to me in the passenger seat. After the car flipped 360 degrees and slammed back down the tires, I heard a voice in my head tell me I was unharmed and felt a gentle caress across my forehead. Once I had determined my neck wasn't broken and I could move, I saw that I was covered in windshield glass. It was everywhere except the passenger seat. There was only glass bits around the edges of the seat, like someone had been sitting there. I didn't have a scratch or a bruise on me. The police officers and the tow truck driver couldn't believe I was uninjured, given the state of my car. Since then, I have tried extra hard to be a better human to repay who and whatever saved me that day. Anonymous.
That's super weird.
That will freaking change your life. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then we have this one. So when I was about 18, I was in a terrible car accident. While waiting for emergency services to arrive, there was an old man wearing shorts and a t-shirt standing nearby. So what's up with these old people? Well, I prefer the old people than the hooded brown person.
that has just like not left your mind.
Nope. No, it has not. No, it has not. All right, so the car was wrecked and my legs were trapped. The old man directed me on how to get out of the car and told me to get my phone and call 911. After emergency services arrived, I was told that the car was so wrecked that they were waiting for the jaws of life, which is this thing that like opens up cars, to free me, so no one could figure out how I managed to get out myself. I was also declared deceased by the first emergency vehicle that had stopped. I told them about the old man, but no one in the car was with me and no one in the accident scene remembers him. I was the only one to see this old man, and I'm so grateful to whoever he was for helping me get out of that car. Super creepy.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is the last one. So my mother was going through cancer treatment and wasn't feeling great after her most recent one that afternoon. She went to bed early and I stayed up playing video games on the other side of the house. Around midnight, I felt a hand touch my shoulder and a really strong feeling that I should check up on my mom hit me. I found her passed out on the floor and took her to the hospital where she received an emergency blood transfusion. She's now 10 years cancer-free and thriving, but that night it was like someone else was there watching out for her. Goosebumps.
Yeah, goosebumps.
Like just goosebumps. And I think that's like your instinct.
Yeah, I
coming
think
into
that's
play
like
too,
instinct
right?
too.
Because I liked that one because it kind of reminds me of when we're in the newborn stage.
Yeah.
You know how there's sometimes something just tells you to like check.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't explain it, but
Yeah.
it is real. I
Yeah.
swear it's real. I don't know, but like
What Julie means, for like those of you
Yeah.
that don't understand newborn stage, is like when you just have a baby, it's like
so those first months.
those first
you know.
months, the baby hasn't even cried and you like already know that
Yeah,
there's like
that it's
something
happening.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest thing and it's unexplainable, but it has every time that I've had that feeling like you should go check. There's something in my mind that's like you should go check or look or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't even remember because everything was a haze, but it was for real.
Yeah. So crazy.
Anyway, so yeah, you guys wanted to hear it and we delivered.
Yes.
So this was pretty crazy, pretty intense. I could totally understand how this could be very woo-hoo and people could attribute this to spirituality and like the basis of religion and all that stuff. But there is a psychological factor to it. When
Yeah.
you do add in those stress hormones and that high intensity and you're in that survival and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Your brain tries to protect itself and it does crazy things. And the brain is
I'm literally
insane.
thinking about the hooded person, and there's a little hooded man sitting on Julie's shelf
Oh my god, yeah.
right now.
That's right. Yeah, he's my little creeper.
So I'm literally
You had never seen him?
I had seen him before, but now I saw him again and I was like, this little human hooded person. She's so creepy.
I am creepy.
She's like the only person that thinks a praying mantis is cute. The only person that thinks a lizard is cute.
They are cute.
The only person that thinks a bat is cute. The
There are
only
some
thing
really
that
cute
keeps
bats.
a little hooded person on the shelf just looking at her the entire day.
He can't look at me. He has no face.
Need I say more? But anyways, this is our episode on Third Man Syndrome.
Opposites attract, okay?
She could have a flower.
I do,
She
but
does
they're
have
dead
flowers.
right now.
But they're literally dead. They're black, hanging.
I swear I hadn't
Down.
noticed. That's not on purpose. They were alive like 2 days ago. I just have to change them out.
Then she has
It's
Jack.
Hero.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
Hero, but he's cute.
Oh, he's cute. But Julie is like in her like Halloween is coming.
Well,
She's ready.
always in
It's
a-
like her favorite.
I'm always in a state of
time.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
And patrons, you guys are the MVPs. Thank you guys so much for always being here and supporting us and keeping this going. And just like we did on this one, if you guys see something out there and you want us to do an episode, more than happy to do it. All right. So we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Like, comment, review us on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, etc.
Check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Funny Medicine Podcast. Our Gmail is funnymedicine305@gmail.com. And remember, we are not diagnosing you.
Definitely not, just funny stuff.
See you later, guys.